Alright, so we'll get started with the topic that we are going to do in the session today. It is about Yoga Shastra called Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So, have anyone of you heard of Hatha Yoga Pradipika before? Heard? Okay. So, Hatha Yoga Pradipika is a scripture which is written by Swatma Rama in 15th century. Okay, and today we are going to see what is the whole concept. First we'll try to understand what is the whole concept Swatma Rama is trying to talk about in his whole scripture, and we'll also see in terms of how do we progress our journey towards reaching the ultimate goal. So what is that ultimate goal that Swatma Rama also talks about is what we will discuss today. Okay. So we'll not deviate into general conversations, we'll just stick to the scriptures in terms of what Swatma Rama is saying and what has he written in the scriptures, and we'll just focus only on what he is saying and keep our focus here, because there are many other yoga shastras which can kind of correlate certain things similar to this, but we'll just stick to the Hatha Yoga scripture. So before I start the entire session, this is what I believe. I know nothing, and my pranams to my Guruji, Mataji and Babaji. So these are my gurus, and they are passing on the message through me is what I strongly believe. So all of you would be always wondering, right? Why should you study these sutras, or why should you study these scriptures? I mean, like, for what purpose? You pick up a book, for example, you want to learn something, right? You pick up a book and read about it, and then you learn it and you practice it in your life. Right? For example, let's say you want to cycle. You might read initially some 2-3 books on how to cycle, and then you take a bicycle and you ride the bicycle. That is when you learn how to ride the bicycle, not by just reading the scriptures. So you may be wondering, then why should I read these scriptures? What does it do to me? Right? So these are two ultimate points that I have discovered that why should we read scriptures about, right? So the first point is it brings you closer and ultimately turns you into a being with unconditional happiness. So let's ponder about this point, right? When do we feel happy? Do all of us need a reason to be happy? Right? I got a child, so I'm very happy. I got a new car, I'm very happy. I bought a new house, I'm very happy. Are you seeing that trend of attaching yourself or to a reason to be happy? Right? So why can't you be happy without a reason? Can you be happy without a reason? Unconditionally happy? So these scriptures provide us ways and helps us to reach that state of unconditional happiness, not attaching ourselves to any reason to be happy. So that's the first point. Second point, I think this is very controversial when you go to the other part of the community who actually tell you that there is no God, there is no divinity, there is nothing. So they say Charvaka Vada. So when they do those kind of, you go to that community, they live in that area or in that space and in that conscious space, and they're happy about it, right? But by reading the scriptures, it introduces that divinity, right? Like, for example, you may be looking at the features of Lord Shiva they talk about, or you may be listening to Vishnu Sahasranama and looking at the features or the attributes of Lord Vishnu they talk about, right? Or any god you see, right? They talk about a lot of features about it, a lot of divinity in it. So in the end, the scriptures help us to become those divine beings ourselves. We become divine by following certain things in the scriptures, and being is a state, or it's a state of consciousness. So we come to that state of consciousness by always being in that space of divinity. So this is why I believe we should definitely practice the scriptures or read certain things what is given in the scriptures. I'm not saying we should study, I'm saying we should study and practice it. Reading about cycling is different and cycling is different, right? So these are the two things I believe, and of course, trust me, we will receive all that blessings from the divinity the minute we start indulging ourselves into that practice. You get into that space, the divinity will bless you with whatever you need to excel in that particular space. Okay, so that's the divine blessing that we talk about. So this is why I believe probably studying a little bit of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, understanding things in it, might change your perception and your way of thinking, and introduce you to a new dimension in your life. Right? Now let's come to the text itself. So what are the best books to read about Hatha Yoga Pradipika? So I would say the yellow color one that you see here, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika of Swatma Rama. It's a commentary, it's the commentary Jyotsna of Brahmananda. So it's a very small book, beautifully written. Actually, exactly whatever is the shloka that is there, it's being translated into a text, easily understandable by everyone. So it is from Adyar Library. You can buy this book. You'll get it on Amazon. So this is the best book you want to study about Hatha, at least what I have seen.
Highly discounted price. Really discounted price.
Yeah. And Adyar books are really good. If you can look at their books, amazing books they have. So this is one of the best books I have read, at least from the Adyar Library. The next one is Hatha Yoga Pradipika by Swami Mukti Bodhananda. This is a big book which enters into a lot of details and descriptions. If you want to get deeper into understanding a lot of things around Hatha Yoga Pradipika, you can refer this book as well. But personally, I have completely taken the extract of this contents from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika book of Swatma Rama, which is from Jyotsna commentary of Brahmananda. So there is one nice talk. This was when we visited Kanyakumari this year. It is by a person called Dr. Jayaraman Mahadevan. So you can kind of, whenever you have some time, it's available online, so you can watch this video. When we went to Kanyakumari for a yoga event, that's when we heard his lecture. So how does so what we'll do now is we'll enter to a couple of shlokas, how the Hatha Yoga Pradipika starts with, and then we will get into understanding many things. So that's the right way to go. So first thing is he starts with a shloka. Shri Adinathaya Namostu Tasmai Enopadishtha Hatha Yoga Vidya Vibhrajate Paronnata Raja Yogam Arodhumicho Gati Rohiniva. So what does this mean? He basically starts his scripture by saluting Lord Shiva, and he says Lord Shiva who taught Parvati the Hatha Yoga Vidya. So this is Lord Shiva teaching Parvati this Vidya. That's what the first shloka says. And he also says this is a stairway for anyone who wants to reach the Raja Yoga. I think probably in your Bhagavad Gita classes you'll understand much about Raja Yoga, but he says that this is a stairway for you to enter into the Raja Yoga, and for this purpose he is basically writing this particular book. Second shloka, Pranamya Shri Gurunatham Swatma Ramena Yogina Kevalam Raja Yogaya Hatha Vidyopadishyate. So he says here very clearly, Swatma Rama Yogin, having saluted his Lord and Guru, right? He's telling here, he's saluting his Lord and Guru, teaches the Hatha Yoga Vidya solely for attainment of Raja Yoga. So this is a stairway for you to move to the next level of Raja Yoga. Okay. So these are the first two shlokas of Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So I'll not be able to talk through every shloka, but I told the first two is something that Prathama and Dvitiya, first two shlokas are something that you need to know. Alright. Now let's get into the chapters of Hatha Yoga Pradipika, how the whole book is organized. Right? So the whole book is organized into 4 segments. The first segment, the first chapter, I would say, talk about asanas. Okay, so why asanas? To strengthen your physical body and mind. So the first 67 shlokas in the book talk about the asanas. The next is about pranayama. They call it as kumbhakas in Hatha Yoga Praddeepika. Pranayamas are called as kumbhakas, referred to as kumbhakas, but I've used the common name pranayama. So next 78 shlokas talks about pranayamas. And why pranayama? It's mainly because to purify your nadis and to increase the movement of your prana in your body. So you'll understand what it is as in when we go about, right? So in today's session, we will cover the chapter 1 and chapter 2, asanas and pranayamas. Next comes the third chapter, the mudras and bandhas, which is another 130 shlokas. And mudras and bandhas help us to amplify this pranic movement. So we basically start with the physical body and mind, then we enter into the prana, a subtle element through pranayama, and then we talk about amplifying that prana. Why we should do it? I'll tell you next. So we talk about amplifying the prana, increasing the energy state or awakening the kundalini, whatever you want to call. So it is basically amplifying your prana. So the third chapter talks about these techniques of mudras and bandhas using which you can amplify your prana. And the last one is about samadhi. And trust me, there is no other book which talks so much detail in samadhi like Hatha Yoga Praddeepika. 114 shlokas. Right? And then he talks about a concept called nadhanusandhana and merger of the Atman and Paramatman, which we call it as Advaita, or which we call it as the union or the yoga, whatever you want to call it. So that's the last chapter number 4. So chapter 3 and 4 will probably take it in the next session, and for chapter 4 we will have a small experiential session as well. Okay. All right. So there are two things that are very important for us to understand before we start getting into Hatha Yoga, right? So let us take a simple analogy. I think all of you would have seen a prism, right? So when you put the light on top of a prism, what happens?
It scatters into 7 colors.
You see 7 colors, right? So there is one source, the light that is coming in, splitting into 7 colors. Right? And the prism is the medium. So light is coming through the prism and splitting into 7 colors. Right? Let's think about what is happening on our own human body. So the divine energy or the cosmic energy, or you call it whatever you want to call it, that's falling on you and splitting into 5 different elements.